I'm Clyde Lewis, and this is Ground Zero. I know it's been said many times on this program, but, as we edge closer to what we call the future, and every day we near it, it's the inevitable. We have to say to ourselves, what is coming? And what is coming is a technological changeover. It's almost like, everything that you thought you knew in the past is going to change. And yes, there are going to be people that aren't going to stand for it. They're not going to be a part of it. They're going to break away. They're going to rebel, and they're going to say no. And of course, that is something that sounds uncomfortable to a lot of people that think that everything's going to go as planned. But it's not going to go as planned. In fact, there have been a number of provisions, documents, parameters, things of that nature that have been proposed for some time, and there are goals that need to be met, and when those goals are met, they move on to the next thing, and the next thing, and the next thing, and it's the enemy after next, after next, after next, after next, and the crusades are the same to go on and on and on and on and on. And so tonight, I wanted to acquaint you with DeBRoAH TAvAReS, who is an activist and a reporter who I had the pleasure of meeting at a conspiracy conference 2 years ago. She's also been involved with being an activist against things like the Bohemian Grove meetings and several other things where she has been actually interviewed. And there is a new video out right now that has been put out by Bill Coons, who I have worked with as well, who is an activist who has actually done videos or actually created videos of me and put them online. But she is online now with her video reporting about future strategic warfare issues that they're proposing for 2025, but there are many other things to cover as we prepare to get into this strategic issues and what is coming. So without further ado, we go to DeBRoAH TAvAReS. Hi, DeBRoAH. You're on Ground Zero.
Well, thank you so much, Clyde, for having me on tonight. And absolutely, I first want to shout out my website so that everybody can either get online and check out some of the material we'll be covering this evening, and or certainly take note and go to stopthecrime.net, stopthecrime.net. We're running a number of websites, as you know, Clyde, including refusesmartmeters.com. That was our original refusesmartmeters.com website. We now have a sister site that is smartmetersmurder.com, and that's exactly what they do. We also have toxicsky.org and toxicdrinkingwater.org. What I'd like to do, Clyde, is go into some of the source documents that we have posted on stopthecrime.net, and I would recommend that everybody download these documents, print them out, and have them at their fingertips, because we really don't know how long we will have the opportunity to have these radio programs and to have an internet based on the madness that is escalating every single day.
Also based on the madness that you've uncovered with some of the documents that you have been talking about. And I want to kind of, it's kind of, I guess, important that we realize that a lot of the documentation and what I call these parameters or these approximations have been going on all the way back to the 1960s with the Iron Mountain Report. Am I correct?
Well, you're exactly right. In fact, the Iron Mountain Report is up on stopthecrime.net. We have it in several formats. I would recommend that people watch it as a documentary. We did transcribe that documentary because people were telling me that they got so engrossed with taking notes that they were pausing it. Well, this way they can download the transcribed version of the documentary and highlight it as they go through the Iron Mountain Report. And let's just kind of start with what the Iron Mountain Report lays out.
I would love that, because I think a lot of people are unaware of what the Iron Mountain Report is, and I think that to some of them it's just Chinese and gibberish and they don't understand it. So what is the Iron Mountain Report, DeBRoAH?
Well, it is a report. It is an agenda that was put forth in the 60s under John F. Kennedy's administration. And there were experts that were commissioned to examine what the United States would look like should we transition out of a war economy and war reality into a golden age of peace. Now, peace in the terms of this report is anything but peace. Peace is the description by the international bankers, the Luciferian, the global elite, whatever you want to call them, Clyde. Peace to them is for their sovereignty, and that would mean total enslavement of all of the lower class, which is all of us.
Right.
And what they want is an absolute totalitarian enslavement of all of us and total oppression through technologies. And they want a new world order. It's a system that recognizes, of course, no limits of authority with forced control over every aspect of our public and private lives without regard for ethics, morality, or life itself. And these documents reveal the extent in which we are nothing more than cattle, jellyfish brains, as they call us, and cannon fodder. And the New World Order, as you so well know, controls the media, the politics, economy, speech, and engages in widespread use of propaganda campaigns and total surveillance.
Psychological operations that they put on the American people, and the American people fall for these things, and they go right along with the programs that they approximate.
Absolutely. Well, they're distracted under the guise of all of the propaganda and misinformation. And the way that this system stays in its political power is through mass terror. And that is a very important component to enslaving us emotionally. And mass terror and propaganda, or they call it make-believe. So the program tonight is going to empower everyone that's listening to go to the source documents and find out for themselves what the Luciferian banking cartel says in their own words. And what is so fascinating is that they release documents for us to see. This is how they transmit information. They just think we're all too stupid to read it, and they keep us so distracted around things that have little or insignificant to the realities that they're creating for us. And they laugh in these documents at our inability to read or understand what they're writing about. The Iron Mountain Report is very, very significant. It took a number of years for it to be completed, and when it was completed, John F. Kennedy had already been assassinated, and Johnson was president. And after he reviewed that agenda, he said because of the content, it is not to be released to the people. A whistleblower released it. The government said it was a hoax because it was so sci-fi and so out there back in 1966 and 1967. People bought the idea that it had to be a hoax because the Iron Mountain talked about the fact that it was going to absolutely take down our Constitution. And it was a document of treason couched in titles and words. People just could not accept the reality of this report. And it talked about how the handling of men, women, and babies on the basis of herd animal management without regard to morality. People weren't used to hearing that. They thought they lived in the United States. Well, this came out in the 60s, and at this moment I want to clarify something that's very, very important, Clyde. It's very important for everybody to understand that on October 21st of 1945, the United States became a charter member of the United Nations, and we had to relinquish our sovereignty in order to become a charter member of the UN, and we did. Therefore, we have not had sovereignty. We have not had a republic. We are no longer under law, and we are in a matrix under a false pretense, and we have an illegal system, illegal legal system, and we're under no laws. We're under the laws that are stated in these documents. And so the Iron Mountain Report talked about how war was required, that it was a political stabilizer, that war was the glue that holds nations together and rallies the people to make sacrifices so that the elites can build up massive war machines. And we'll talk about that in the NASA war plan.
I would like to also, when we get back after the break, I'd like to go down some specific points of the Iron Mountain Report. And I remember Johnson had said that in order for all these things to take place, and this is back in it started in 1966, He said it would take at least 40 some odd years for any of these to be implemented totally. And I was noticing, and I've read the Iron Mountain Report, that most of what has been talked about, point by point, actually, from the time it was conceived to about the year 2006 or 2004 or whenever, we started to see all these things being implemented in government.
That's absolutely right.
Yeah, so I want to discuss that with you coming up. DeBRoAH TAvAReS is my guest tonight on Ground Zero, activist and reporter. She has a lot of things to talk to you about, especially with future strategic issues, and a number of documents that she's been looking over and actually demonstrating the parameters in which we will be placed in the future. Reporter and activist DeBRoAH TAvAReS is my guest tonight on Ground Zero. We were earlier talking about the Iron Mountain Report going back in time to the 1960s, the Kennedy administration through the Johnson administration, provisions and approximations for a future that were put together by a group of elitists that wanted to see a type of peace where they would have control of the resources. And there were several points that they put in the Iron Mountain Report that were kept from the American people, but then a whistleblower decided to reveal them. And I would like, before we go to the next segment, some of the key points that were proposed back in the 1960s that we're now seeing being implemented in our government now. DeBRoAH, go ahead.
Absolutely. The Iron Mountain Report talks about taking away not only the Constitution, but all private property rights and relocating us into human settlement zones, house-to-house search and seizures. It talks about why zip codes were set up as war identification zones. It talks about the territories being created in the United States and the fact that all of us are now noticing the regionalism that's coming into our cities. We're being converted. In fact, all of our cities have agreed to UN policies. All cities have signed on through their planning department climate action plans. If you want to verify this with your city, call your planning director and find out if you have a climate action plan in place. This is all based on the false science that the Iron Mountain Report said they would create. They would invent the fear and they would create mass pollution. They would deforest us. They would do pollution of our water and air in order to create global warming. And that is what climate change is. It is a created false reality, and they said they would do it in the Iron Mountain Report. They needed to create a fear, a substitute for war, and create a fear that was so bonding by the global society. It had to be credible. It had to lie. Credibility had to lie at the heart of the problem that they were inventing. And so they created mass pollution. They are intentionally polluting the planet to create the fear of global warming and to seize everything, because as we are being told, we have to use less water, we have to use less stuff. This is all a lie to seize control of not only the food supply, the energy supply, all our private property rights, everything. Now, private property rights do not only include land. We're talking about your physical bodies. They want control of everything. In the Iron Mountain Report, they talked about UNESCO and how it would take over our school system, and it has. We have Common Core curriculum being implemented this fall in most schools from kindergarten through 12th grade.
And Common Core is where they're monitoring the responses of your children and documenting them, right?
Absolutely. And they're not going to be teaching cursive handwriting any longer, which is going to cause the inability to think, because when you're writing in cursive, your right and left brain neurons fire. And we won't be able to read our historical documents because they were all in cursive. They are rewriting our corporate history right now. Everything will be based on Wi-Fi and computers, which are, of course, Wi-Fi, all the wireless is dicing and slicing the DNA, and in children it's dicing and slicing the DNA. And I'm going to add this in just right now because we're talking about Wi-Fi. But Wi-Fi will damage our children's mitochondria, the DNA, and of their children and their children's children and their children. As long as there's a female line, you can have this genetic damage. So by putting Wi-Fi in school classrooms, what you're actually doing is sentencing 57% of our children to some form of birth defect forever. Common Core curriculum is a new dumbed-down international education program that's required to be taught to all schools across America starting this year. And Bill Gates Foundation is providing funding to incorporate computers in the classrooms with Wi-Fi.
So what we're looking at is how these electronic, I guess you could say, the electronic warfare or the silent weapons are being implemented, all beginning with the parameters that were set aside that would guarantee, in the Iron Mountain report, social control that would actually, with the gradual implementation of a failed economy, failed sovereign government, external enemies of the state, racial clashes, racial divides, religion abolishment through the demonization of churches, like sex scandals and things like that in the Catholic faith, creating a space menace, which is another thing they talked about. And you also brought up again the environmental threat that would be under the control of the government, which would be actually weather problems and climate problems and the fear that the planet will be forced to near extinction because of these problems.
Absolutely. As a matter of fact, Clyde, I just was reading an article where the insurance companies in the state of California now are going to evaluate expanding their coverage premiums based on increased sea levels, as sea level rise due to global warming. Of course, this is all a hoax. This is how they're collapsing everything. Property owners simply are not going to be able to continue paying for their properties with all of these insidious taxes across the board. Right now, they're taking a global inventory of every single thing so that they can tax and monitor everything.
So the war that they're doing, the war is on Americans, American values, and everything that was constitutional is now being thrown aside because of parameters that were first set in the 60s and have been carried throughout well into now. And of course, the document that you're going to be talking about that was just uncovered from 2001 discussing the silent weapons that they are going to be using to not only curtail any type of subversion, but also to depopulate the planet. So tonight, DeBRoAH TAvAReS is with us to talk about how all of these approximation parameters have been in the planning since the 1960s. In fact, with the Iron Mountain report and other documents that she now is revealing to the public, it's important that we hear what the future holds. And so DeBRoAH's with us again. Thank you for being on Ground Zero tonight.
Well, thank you so much, Clyde. At this point, I want to jump into an extremely important map, and this is one of the ways in which they are stealing our private property, because people are observing across the nation that farmers and ranchers are being set upon by the Fish and Game, by the U.S. Forestry. They're being fined and regulated and penalized. Right now, what the USDA is doing with the census forms that they sent out to all the farms and ranches nationwide, this is a global food inventory. This is so they can see what their stuff is, not our stuff. This is in process of global domination of the food supply. We're finding that now in Northern California, where there are a number of organic apple orchards, that the USDA has requested the insurance companies to come through and GPS apple trees on people's private properties. So this is happening. This is a absolute massive data collection right now. What we must do is not comply. Just like we cannot comply with the smart meters, we must refuse the smart meters. You must not accept a biohazard on your home. But I want to talk real quickly, Clyde, about the Wildlands Project map that we do have up on our website, stopthecrime.net. This map is critical for everyone to go look at and see. It is a map of the United States. It is mandated by the United Nations. It is a biodiversity treaty that we signed on to. It's a forced transformation and relocation of all Americans and cities to comply with environmental policies and reduction of CO2 emissions, all based on fraudulent, false science. This moment, I want to just say quickly, there's another very, very important document that we won't really cover this evening, Clyde, but everyone needs to also understand what the New World Order Exposed 1969 by an insider is about. And they talk about the falsified science, and they talk about the indoctrination that would be set up in our schools and longer times in the classrooms, and children would learn less. But getting back to the wildlands map, you will see where human access is denied. You will see the corridors of reservations where no humans will be able to get into those properties. This is why we're seeing massive collapses of our road system, where they're not coming in and maintaining the roads. Why should they? Our roads are not going to need to take us where they took us before. This is why we're not getting the upkeep required to access areas. This is why we're seeing campsites and campgrounds all over the country closing down. This is all part of the property taking by the global elite. There are a number of very, very influential and very wealthy people, including the Turner Foundation, who is behind the Wildlands Project. In fact, I spoke with Ted Turner a little over a year ago. People can listen to the recounting of that interview on YouTube under Ted the Terrible Turner. But I want to say that it shows, the map shows where there are corridors where no humans will be allowed, buffer zones that will be highly regulated use for humans, and we will be forced into designated settlement reservations. That's what this is called, just like Indian reservations. And you will see this on that Wildlands Project map. It's very important to understand what is behind this map. They say that all life, human and non-human, has equal value. Resource consumption above what is needed to supply vital human needs is immoral. Human population must be reduced. Western civilization must radically change present economic, technological, and ideological structures. This is what is behind the relocation of the United States population. They are rewilding the United States to a pre-Columbian reality. This is what you'll see in the movie The Hunger Games.
Is this why they're planning on moving a lot of the government facilities and much of the government to Denver rather than keeping it in Washington, D.C.?
Well, I can't speak to that. That's probably where they're going to set up the New World Order, the one world government. But I can tell you that right now they're relocating all of us. And we're finding it couched in many words, Clyde, smart communities. What we're seeing is our cities are setting up what they call preferred development zones, where they're saying this is where the required development should be focused. They want development. They want multiple family, stack and pack, mixed-use housing and commercial right next to transportation and freeways, right near freeways that have the highest levels of unhealthy air. You don't want people living near those types of circumstances, but this is what they're doing right now here in Northern California. They are gathering up 108 cities into one Bay Area. They're calling it One Bay Area. Very important. When you see the movie The Hunger Games, you hear them talk about districts. Well, they had 12 districts in the Hunger Games, but the reality for us is 10 districts. The Iron Mountain report speaks to that as well. They're delocalizing our ability to have any conversations with our local government. And that is what is happening. This is underway right now. It's also very, very important for me to say, too, that the smart grid infrastructure is intended to only last for 20 years. According to industry documents, that's going to be until about the year 2030. People ask, well, why? Well, simply because all of the power lines, all the infrastructure that's currently set up is simply not going to need to go where it is going now because they're resettling us. And I found another very, very disturbing project that's in the making. It's called the Walker Lake Dome Project, and it is a project that they are under construction or near construction. It's going to enclose major U.S. cities. It's a shield, and it is being built right now in Lassen County in Northern California. And it's a dome that's going to be constructed over an existing 2,000 population of the town in Lassen. And it's the proving ground for technology that will one day enclose major U.S. cities, especially those that are prone to weather-related disasters such as tornadoes and hurricanes. and it has a clear protective dome. The structure and material is believed to be capable to resist against Category 5 hurricanes. So keep in mind, this is all part of the global warming climate scare. They're going to have us moving into domes, and because we're so frightened of hurricanes and all of the wicked weather that we've been experiencing, that is all weaponized.
So that television program that they're airing right now, that Stephen King television show about being under the dome, is predictive programming.
Absolutely. That is why
Wow.
It's so important as we go through this conversation tonight that people understand what we're seeing in Hollywood. Hollywood, of course, as you know, Hollywood is a wizard's cane that was set up by the powers that be to create predictive programming. Very important for people to go and watch The Time Machine by H.G. Wells. And the reason I'm bringing that up right now is because you will see what is in store for us that was told us way back then. You will see the levels of mind control that occurred and was told us then. Also watch the movie Soylent Green. Very, very important. Watch that after you watch the Iron Mountain YouTube on StopTheCrime.net.
Now, we got to point out that H.G. Wells, of course, was part of the Fabian socialist movement that was on the inside of making plans for the future and to actually propose future ideals. He was a futurist. And that many of the things that he has talked about in his films, actually his books and then later the films, have come to pass.
That's absolutely right. In fact, watch, after everybody watches the Iron Mountain documentary on StopTheCrime.net, then I would urge everyone to go and watch Soylent Green. That, of course, came on the heels of the Iron Mountain report just a few years later, after the Iron Mountain. Of course, Soylent Green is about consuming humans. They're processed into biscuits. Well, we have Cinemix. I know we spoke about that sometime back when I was last on your show. Cinemix, Senomyx. They're already processing fetal tissue and adding that to our food supply. Go to StopTheCrime.net and download the flyer on Cinemix, Senomyx. This is Soylent Green now, in modern day reality now, in the 21st century. And you will read all of the different manufacturers that are all global banker manufacturing and companies that are putting, they're creating cannibalism through our food supply. This increases our anger. This is horrific. And of course, it's something that they enjoy doing because they are Luciferian, they're evil, they have satanic ritualistic behaviors where they sacrifice small children. The entire basis is all based on doping, the drug cartel, and on trafficking and pedophilia and child sacrifice.
I'm Clyde Lewis, and this is Ground Zero. Tonight, a very compelling program with DeBRoAH TAvAReS on the show tonight, talking to us about a few documents that were released 40s, 50s, 60s, and the facts that are now coming to pass. At first, there were approximations, there were estimations, and now they're happening. But one of the documents that got my attention was something that she had talked about at a conspiracy conference, a document that surfaced, created in 2001 for NASA. It was written as a PowerPoint by Dennis Bushnell, the chief NASA scientist at Langley. The document is called Future Strategic Issues, Future Warfare 2025. It's a PDF file that is now available and states directly on the cover of the document that this technological terror that people are afraid of is being introduced now. At the time, now was 2001, but now is exactly right now. The document was released in 2001, and its warnings were lost in all the noise that took place after the 9/11 terrorist attacks on the United States. 12 years later, the document is resurfaced and was discussed by DeBRoAH TAvAReS. A new video was released. It actually has been posted on YouTube and StopTheCrime.com. The document has some very interesting points that indicate that the government has plans for total control of the population grid and will use silent weapons to depopulate the planet. Now, I guess this is really nothing new because what this is the report is backing up the idea of using silent weapons like HAARP, wind towers, and other things like smart meters on every home to monitor the energy consumption of every human on the grid. And so these future events have repercussions, and we are going to be discussing those with DeBRoAH on the program. We welcome her back to the show. DeBRoAH TAvAReS, welcome back to Ground Zero.
Well, thank you so much, Clyde. There's another point I need to make from the Silent Weapons Quiet Wars document that is the underpinnings of the NASA document. The silent weapons system, they say on page 8 of the silent weapons document, is a type of biological warfare. It attacks the vitality, options, and mobility of individuals of a society by knowing, understanding, manipulating, and attacking the sources of natural and social energy and their physical and mental and emotional strengths. And now what we see with the smart meters and all of the frequencies, i.e. the cell phone towers that are being hidden and deployed all over our country, this is a frequency attack. This is all part of the silent weapons system. In fact, at this point, everybody needs to go to antennasearch.com and find out where the antennas and cell phone towers are deployed near your homes, in your communities, and in your neighborhoods. These are weapons. Make no mistake about it. Go to stopthecrime.net and also smartmetersmurder.com and watch Barry, B-A-R-R-I-E, Trower's YouTubes that we've had transcribed as well. The cell phone towers are weaponized, and this is causing, of course, all of the maladies that many people are facing, seizures, vertigo, tumors, irritability, tension, much depression, agitation, balancing problems. This is all part of the result of this silent weapons system. We don't even realize we're being attacked by a weapon, and we are. They say in the silent weapons document that the public instinctively feels that something is wrong, but because of the technical nature of the silent weapon, we cannot express our feelings in a rational way or handle the problem with intelligence. Therefore, we do not know how to cry for help, or we do not know how to associate with others to defend ourselves against it. Well, we do, because you're hearing now what this is all about, so that you'll understand why you have migraines, why you're having sleep disruption, insomnia, night sweats, why there's massive increases in autism and all of the designer children maladies, ADHD, etc. This is all planned environmentally. So we have many choices we can make as we waffle through this absolutely Luciferian attack upon us, causing asthma, food allergies, everything you can imagine. This is the silent weapon attack upon us. And I just want to say one more thing about the silent weapons document, and this is pertaining to Snowden. And this is on page 11, and this is extremely important to understand what they said in the 1940s and 50s. They said in order for the elites to achieve their sovereignty, they must at least achieve one end, and that was that the public was to make neither a logical or mathematical connection between the economics and the energy sciences. This is becoming, they said, increasingly difficult to control because more and more businesses are making demands upon computer programmers to create and apply mathematical models to manage their businesses. They say this: it is only a matter of time before the new breed of private programmer will catch on to the far-reaching implications of the work began at Harvard in 1948. The speed with which this can communicate their warning to the public will largely depend upon how effective we have been at controlling the media, subverting education, and keeping the public distracted with matters of no real importance. Critical to read this Silent Weapons Quiet Wars document. The very concluding paragraph in this document says, those who will not use their brains are no better than those that have no brains. And we are a mindless school of jellyfish, father, mother, son, and daughter. And we become useful beasts of burden and slave labor and fodder. This is how they look at us. So now when we move into the NASA document, this will make some sense because this is a carry forward to 2001 as a PowerPoint that Clyde just said, presented by Dennis Bushnell, who is a transhumanist. He wants to transition into machinery, and that's what this document is all about. The document is about robots, cyborgs, and humans. And when I first found this document, it said on page 4 that everything presented in this document was existing data, trends, and analogies and technologies. And remember, this was in 2001. On 93, page 93, what is just unbelievable is, again, this was 2 months before 9/11 that this was presented as a PowerPoint. It said terror attacks within the continental United States take down critical infrastructure, use binary weapons, biologicals, use of EMP, which is an electromagnetic pulse. If this occurs, we go back to the Stone Ages. Our entire grid is shut down. Computers, everything that we've known is done. They say they will use frequencies against our brains. They say capture, torture Americans in living color on prime time. On page 93 still, it says exploit CNN syndrome. Very important to watch the movie on stopthecrime.net about War. It tells you the history of CNN that was set up by the CIA. And you'll understand why they talk throughout this document of serious war and collateral damage and exploitation. They, again, move forward on the glue that they believe is necessary to hold power over us through terror, fear, and make-believe and disinformation. Well, you're getting the real documents. So they also talk about on page 66, increasingly critical are human limitations and human downsides. Humans are too large, too heavy, too tender. Humans are too slow, both mentally and physically. We require huge costs. We have a rapidly decreasing to negative value. The very next page, 67, talks about robots in the large, how it saves lives, enhances affordability, redefines risk and threat to the environment. They're very, very concerned about the environment. NASA's pushing forward the false global warming idea, which they say on page 8 that we're on a spaceship Earth. We're plundering the ship's supplies, tinkering with the temperature and life support controls, still looking for the instruction manual, engaging in bloody skirmishes in every corner of the vessel, and increasing the size of the crew by 2 million per week. They say on page 9 that humans have taken over and vastly shortened evolution. They are planning to direct evolution. They go on to talk about how they will unleash robots on us. It's called the Eat or Choo-Choo robot. It's a flesh plant-eating robot. It prefers flesh. They're going to unleash this on the land to live off the land. And the inventor, Stuart Wilkinson, said he was very concerned about the dangers of these robots because they would eat humans. And this is in this document. On page 43, they talk about the use of micron-sized mechanized dust, which will be distributed as an aerosol and inhaled into the lungs. They say the dust mechanically bores into the lung tissue and executes various pathological missions. They go on to say that many of these techniques and weapons in this document are now legal. It's a new class of weaponry which is legal. They will be using beam weapons. That will become increasingly prevalent. So when you hear about people feeling that they have headaches or migraines, this and that, they could be being targeted with beam weaponry. Of course, all of this is regarding the frequencies, the cell phone towers, antennas. We've got to unplug as much as possible from our wireless gadgetry. This was put forth to create radiation, make us ill, bring in big pharma, reduce our vitality. On page 50, they talk about the effects of low-power microwaves. And on our website, stopthecrime.net, you can read the document that they refer to. They refer to the U.S. Army document, and we have that on our website. It's about a 21-page document talking about what frequencies will do. The smart grid is a pulsed genocide electromagnetically.
This is some remarkable stuff. TAvAReS is my guest tonight, reporter and activist, and definitely has a lot of information to share with us tonight. A lot of people wanting to get on the lines to talk. We've got to take some phone calls, Deborah, for sure. A lot of people are chomping at the bit to talk to you. We're going to talk to John in California, calling from KOGO 600 AM. You have a question for Deborah. Go ahead.
Yeah, I had one quick question, but after being on hold, it's like, wow, that's a whole, a lot of stuff out there. the whole New World Order, like SPP.gov, the whole free trade agreement thing, the illegal amnesty bill coming up. I'll take these answers off the air. And then the other one was, she brought up the movie Soylent Green. I watched that as a kid at the theater, and that's one of those scary movies. That was Edward G. Robinson's last movie with Charlton Heston, and I always remember everyone wore the same clothes, and it was hot. I was wondering if that was like part of the whole global warming thing, but that movie to this day is I could just think about it and it scares me, And is Deborah married? But yeah, she's something else. I'll tell you what. Yeah, great show, Clive. I'll take them off the air.
All right, John, go ahead.
Well, John, thank you so much for those questions. Absolutely watch Soylent Green now, but as I said earlier, watch it after you've watched the report from Iron Mountain on StopTheCrime.net. It will all start to connect for you. You will understand when you see the Cinemix flyer that we have on our website. They're feeding us human baby fetuses in many of the food products that are put forth by the global elite. It's very, very important to understand that what we see happening in our government right now, we don't have a government. We are USA Inc. We've been taken over by banks and by mega corporations posing as a government. They're not. They're collapsing us. We recently went to Al Gore's preview when he previewed his brand new book called The Future. Unbelievable. He talks about how the middle class is being hollowed out in the United States right now. Businesses, manufacturing, all sent offshore and to China, and it will not be coming back. And in the Silent Weapons Quiet Wars document, they talk about how they must reduce the middle class because it becomes too much of a threat. We gain wealth, we gain knowledge, and we become too much of a risk to their sovereignty. It's all about their sovereignty, their definition of sovereignty. And so I can tell you that in the Silent Weapons document, very, very important to understand who our enemies are. Any of the alphabet agencies, we're talking about any of them. We're talking about the CIA, the Air Force, DARPA, the FBI, Southern Command, the Department of Justice. We're talking about IBM, Google. The whole mess is a complete shoe-in for the New World Order. It's all part of the tentacles of the global elite, the Luciferian. This is what has happened to the United States. This is what has happened to the world. And the whole amnesty situation is just a sideshow. It's a distraction. While they are putting forth weapons and creating increased frequencies all around us, understand where the weapons are located near you. Again, go to antennasearch.com. Those are weapons. Our guns and our ammo are useless when you get into what they have in store. I would also recommend everybody watch the new movie Oblivion. Also, watch Eagle Eye by Spielberg. Very important to understand why we're seeing all the cameras in all of our street corners, intersections, highways. This is all part of massive, massive monitoring. The NSA facility that I visited here just a few weeks ago in Bluffdale, Utah, that's over 1 million square feet of mega massive data collection center. One of the biggest concerns about that facility is its algorithms and its ability to unencrypt all encrypted nuke codes globally. So everything we think we can hide, we can't hide. Nothing. This is for global inventory. This is for massive mind control. They want to know your thoughts. This is the thought police. This sounds incredibly horrific, but it is absolutely where we are going. They're replacing our streetlights. They say they have pilot programs happening in many states right now, and including in San Francisco. They are putting streetlights that will have subliminal messaging. Understand, this is all mind control. This is real. This is not a sci-fi movie script. They have written a sci-fi movie script and conscripted all of us as extras. We are in a massive, massive planned takeover by them and a massive genocide and enslavement program. This is all real. We have been lied to. We have been betrayed. When we flew back to Washington, D.C. to verify some of the documents, and we were actually given the documents that allowed chemicals and biologicals to be sprayed upon the American population without our knowledge or consent, that which Congress approved and the Department of Defense was given the power to do that, yes, it's a real document. They are spraying us with toxic chemtrails every single day. In fact, I posted some photographs yesterday. We're about 20 minutes from Bohemian Grove, and we have been smothered with chemtrails the last 2 days, just absolutely doused. And the news media was talking about the fact that we can expect some lightning strikes. Well, they want to burn us down. They're implementing weather attacks for plausible deniability. This is how they're taking private property. We saw what happened in Oklahoma City with the tornadoes. Go to toxicsky.org and listen to the weatherman's report on Oklahoma City. And recently, a weather forecaster said to us, we're going to have soft sunshine tomorrow. Soft sunshine. Because we have a continuous plasma sprayed over us. NASA documents indicate that has reduced global dimming by 20%.
DeBRoAH TAvAReS is our guest tonight, giving us all sorts of information about the future and what their plans are for you. Tonight we're taking your phone calls, 888-673-3700. That's 888-673-3700. We're going to go to Jerry calling in from Illinois tonight. Jerry, hi, you're on Ground Zero with DeBRoAH TAvAReS. Go ahead.
Hi, Clyde. Glad to have you back. How are you, seriously?
Good.
Okay.
I'm doing fine. Yeah, thanks.
Great, buddy. I'm the guy who called a while back, said you were my art bowel replacement.
Thank you.
Anyway, I have a comment that I can turn into a question. In a town about 25 miles from us, they spent a lot of money, about, I'm going to say a year and a half ago, putting up a new cell tower. And there were antennas all over it, and like 6 months go by, and all the antennas come up missing. And it looks, the weeds have grown up inside the fenced area. I can't tell if there's still something on top of it or not. Now, this thing had to be, I don't know, $100,000, $200,000 to put it up. A friend of mine's crane put it up. Why would they spend that much money to put it up and just leave it, abandon it? There's a question for us. You got any idea on that?
Well, what I would do is I would do antennasearch.com. I would then print out what they will tell you the company is that installed it. It doesn't mean just because weeds have grown around the base of the structure that has been abandoned. Frequencies can go through weeds. I don't know that it's been abandoned.
No, I mean that they took, physically you could see antennas all over it for the first 6 months, and then they went up there one day and took them all down at once.
Yeah, I can't speak to that specific cell tower, but what I can tell you is that they are appearing massively all over our country. They're being disguised in mobile oil gas station signs at gas stations. They're being disguised in church steeples. They're making redwood trees out of them here in Northern California, even yuccas in the desert. Go to our website, stopthecrime.net, and also smartmetersmurder.com. Look at some of the other radio shows that we've posted where we're talking about this at great extent. The cell phone towers are weaponized, as you heard me say earlier in the show.
Yeah.
So again,
I do have one other quick question. How do you tell if you have a smart meter or not?
Okay, go out to your home, go outside your house where your electric meter is, and if it does not have hands on it like a clock, then it is likely a smart meter or a derivative of the smart meter. And so what you're going to want to do is immediately call your utility company, tell them you want that removed and replaced with a legacy analog meter. Now, what the utility companies are doing here in Northern California, because we resisted to the point that many people were even getting arrested. People have had their power turned off.
I heard that going on, yeah.
Yeah, well, let me explain why and what happened. Because of the mass resistance against it, because of the refusal, the non-compliance, which we all of us must do now. It is at our doorsteps. We have no choice, or we're going to be taken and put into FEMA camps. But I can tell you they won't really need to transport us to FEMA camps because they're creating an incarceration from this pulsed electromagnetic genocide they're creating in our homes. These frequencies from the smart meter along with dirty electricity. Again, go to reviews smartmeters.com and smartmetersmurder.com. If you go to stopthecrime.net, all of our sites link from that site. And I know that many people may be feeling like I'm really giving a lot of information. I am. And because we're really needing to do a quick study. We have been left in the dark. Other nations are angry with all of us in the United States because we're fat and stupid. And we only just lost our fat rating a few weeks ago to Mexico by a couple of pounds.
I heard that.
And I have to say, when we're overweight, we're more controllable. We're not able to think as clearly. This is all part of the program. They are jamming our immune systems. It's very, very important that we all make choices, that we stay away from the Illuminati diet program. We stay away from the fast food chains that were put up. When you read the New World Order Exposed, 1969, you will see back in the 60s, they came up with a plan to fractionalize the families, to make it cheaper to eat outside, buy cheap food, toxic food, and women would not cook at home, or men would not cook at home for their families and sit at the table. Right now, we need health first. We need to create our families, our friends. We need to stick together, because the entire program of the NASA war plan, as you will see when you go through that document on stopthecrime.net, is all about unplugging us, keeping us separate, keeping us behind computers so that we don't talk. I mean, when I go to an airport, everyone's busy looking at their iPhones. No one's talking to one another anymore. And they're getting radiated, their DNA sliced and diced, and they're getting sick. And the doctors haven't a clue. They haven't been trained what radiation sickness is doing, and they're medicating everybody. In fact, the Barry Trower series of YouTubes on smartmetersmurder.com talks about the vitality. This is a massive silent war attack upon all of us. We're all in the same boat. We all must quickly get up to speed as quickly as possible. That's why we put these source documents on stopthecrime.net. We talked to many, many people that have been in this for decades, 40, 50 years. Asked them if we were to put up 3 of the most important documents that are succinct and written by the bankers, the Luciferians themselves, what would that be? And these were the ones that they came up with. Now, since then, we've discovered many documents that are very alarming and very disturbing. And the NASA war document, the Future Strategic War circa 2025, is one of them. And again, the U.S. Air Force, DARPA, the CIA, FBI, all of the entire military structure is under the domination of the international banking cartel. We have been taken. Our military, other than the compartmentalized aspect of the good soldiers that are there, they don't understand the big picture. Also, that would include people that work for NASA, some people that work for NASA, and some people that work for DARPA. Very, very important. I want to refer everyone right now, Clyde, to a very, very important book that we have posted on stopthecrime.net. Please, I hope everybody's writing this information down. You must read The Matrix Deciphered by Robert Duncan. Now, he is dedicating the rest of his life to undoing the wrongs that he unknowingly committed with increasing the technologies that helped put this technological tyranny onto all of us through the silent weapons system. And I can only tell you that that's a very, very important book to read. It is on the Mind Control tab of stopthecrime.net. Do your own research and understand what mind control is. This is what is happening now. This is why so many of our legislative officers are just absolutely unable to function. Also, very, very important, I hope everybody has a pen. Write this down. You want to go to stopthecrime.net. You want to listen to Svali, S-V-A-L-I. S-V-A-L-I. She was an ex-Illuminati. She will tell you her story. It's an interview we've posted. Very, very important to understand how the Illuminati function within their families, how they came to the United States looking at the United States as a mission. They settled in Pennsylvania and in Virginia, in San Diego and Portland. And they say that 1% of the population now in the United States are Illuminati, that they take offices, they are in city councils, in our county board of supervisors, they are judges. They are behind and underneath the takedown, the shadow government that we're being foisted upon by all of this darkness. This is so massively evil. And I want to go through the NASA document a bit more, but I also want to tell everybody you can download flyers from all of our websites, and I would recommend that you do. Copy these flyers, keep them in your vehicles. Use magnetic bumper stickers. You'll see those on our sites. We have many people here that are doing banner hangs on the weekend, and you'll see an example of that. Go to stopthecrime.net under breaking news, new news postings, and you'll see my report from Bohemian Grove just about a week and a half ago. And in that report, you will see some of the banners that people are hanging on their cars, putting boxes with flyers. We are the media.
There was I just want to interrupt something. There was actually a report that was in RT that stated that those who were at the Bohemian Grove were actually arrested. Some people were arrested. Some were subjected to microwave beam weapons or something. Is that true?
Well, that is true. In fact, the group that I was with on the 13th of July, yes, were targeted with beam weapons. Absolutely, that was true. That's
amazing because I was just looking at that. In fact, it was a Russia Today story that was filed. It didn't file in the mainstream because we're too busy caring about the royal baby and about race relations. But in the meantime, the Bohemian Grove story was a very important story, and they were talking about how many were arrested trying to break up that meeting. I wanted to also report that I was looking at a new article today. It was in the Canberra Times. The NASA document that DeBRoAH talks about states that agencies that want full spectrum control are Air Force, CIA, DARPA, FBI, Southcom, and the Australian Department of Defense. And when I looked into the Australian Department of Defense and HARP and all the other things that are tied to this, the Gwen Towers and the Wi-Fi, I noticed that there was an article in the Canberra Times about Pine Gap, which is the equivalent of the spying arsenal HARP project that's in Australia. I want to read the quote quickly. It says, the Canberra Times reports that while details of the U.S. presence at Pine Gap remain classified, it is a matter of public record that the highly secretive National Reconnaissance Office responsible for the design and construction operation of U.S. spy satellites is present. Also represented at Pine Gap are the national security agencies, which, of course, is the intelligence organization recently made notorious by Edward Snowden, the Central Intelligence Agency, and the U.S. Geospatial Intelligence Agency, the GIA, which provides imagery and geospatial intelligence to U.S. government. All arms of the U.S. Armed Services all have personal workings at Pine Gap, and uniforms are common at the facility's annual ball. It's important to know of this relationship with Pine Gap and HARP and all of the other electronic surveillance and the full spectrum surveillance that they are going to be proposing. I just thought I would share that because I think it's very important that the audience knows this after we heard that they will be shutting down HARP temporarily, which they have, reopening again in September with new hands, which include DARPA, CIA, and other groups.
Well, with that having been said, Clyde, I want to add the enormity of a new document that we also found, but I don't want to move away from the NASA document quite yet. I'm looking at the time. Not much left. But what I want to say quickly about the NASA war plan is that it is diabolical. They mean everything in it. And they're going forward with all of the conscripting of insects and bugs. So they're going to have mass swarm attacks. They're going to use blast wave accelerators that are going to be used to create tidal waves on low-lying areas. Go ahead to stopthecrime.net. You will see the NASA document. Click on it. We have many things under that document itself to help decipher it, because we had conversations with military personnel to decode some of the acronyms that are in that document itself. So very important. We've spent a lot of time in this document, as well as I want to point out something extremely important is the fact that they talk about mind children, and after that they have a doctor's name by the name of Moravec. And very important to understand, Moravec is a doctor at the Mind Institute at UC Davis in Central California. They have created, through environmental toxins, autism. And the reason that they have done that is because autistic people, and I know about this quite well because I have an autistic family member, they don't have empathy. They are unable to communicate emotions or feelings. They will be the perfect hired personnel by the IT, which the IT is hiring high-functioning autistic. Has Asperger's. That's high functioning on the autistic spectrum. This is why these people can do these things with no regard for morality, or they have no emotions. This is why they're transitioning us from humans with emotions into robots. Will be easily controlled. They believe our emotions get in the way, and so they're going to eliminate that. One more fast thing, Clyde, very, very important, is to understand that the RAND Institute created a technique that we're all facing in all the meetings that we're going to in our towns, and it's called the Delphi technique, and it's how they engineer our opinions. And I know many of you may be attending your city council meetings or your board of supervisors meetings. If you're not, you need to. This is how you see what's happening in your town. You will find that most towns throughout the United States have, through, as I said earlier in the program, through the planning director, have signed on to a climate action plan where they are going to measure and reduce greenhouse gas emissions and CO2s. This is all part of the global hoax. Your cities have signed on because this was by executive order. We are not controlled by a representative government. So go forward knowing that, so that you move from the reality that you're in into the reality that we are really in. And then we'll be able to come up with strategies and things we must do. Watch the movie Avatar. Understand how that is predictive programming. Understand that they are blending machine and humans, and they can cross over with minds. They're doing mind mapping right now. They can implant human brains into robots. They've been able to do this for quite some time.
People have told us that that's impossible, that it's not supposed to be done, but I've talked about this many times, Deborah. Hey, we're out of time. I got to tell you, thank you for this. StopTheCrime.net. Thank you for being on the program. Good night. Good night, Deborah.
Thank you so much, Clyde. Good night.
Take care. Bye-bye.